EFF lapel pin, which I'm told by John to give to the best questioner. So I don't know whether that means most awkward question or most flattering question, so you'll have to choose. So I think the way this is going to work is we have two microphones beetling around the audience. So if you just stick out your hand and then prepare to catch them in a sort of Matrix style kung fu way. I'm going to wait until if the microphone people just reach the first person. I want to pick people out. That's a good optimization, Peter. Yes, we're going to be in the streams. Don't cross the streams. They don't like it. Okay, so...
Oh, I have the mic. I'll stand up. I'm just wondering, in terms of looking at privacy and mega databases collected about people, I'm wondering about the purchasing of personal information from data brokers in the States and giving it over to law enforcement officials. That issue in terms of building up these mega databases, and also international sharing arrangements that are already in place, or more of them seem to be on the looks. And I'm just wondering if your organization has been looking at that, and whether there's any, in terms of legal footing, although you're not lawyers, whether you see a potential there in terms of perhaps, I don't know, given that so much information, at least I suspect, has been already collected, at what point can you try to rein that in? I guess this relates to data retention and also cradle to grave permanent retention information data banks.
Well, I wanted to point out that one of the really significant differences between the US and the European Union is that we don't have a general data protection law. So as a general matter, except in areas where there's very specific legislation or very specific legal theories, if a company wants to create records about you, it can create the records about you without asking you, and it can combine data from any source without notifying you and without giving you an opportunity to correct or review that data. It can keep it forever and use it for any purpose. That's the legal situation in the US in general. So as you might imagine, that leads to the creation of some fairly large databases. I went to a storage industry conference, and they were talking about visiting the data warehouse of one of the large data brokers that the questioner referred to, and it was very large. It was apparently a literal warehouse of several city blocks full of hard drives containing personal data. So I think that it's a fairly difficult battle because it's big business, and we don't have a data protection law. And as a general matter, this information can be collected. There are very specific areas in which it's regulated. For example, credit reporting is regulated along sort of data protection lines, but less strict than that. And there is international sharing of this data. We've been interested in that in our freedom of information work, in our open government work that Annie mentioned, trying to expose the nature and extent of intergovernmental cooperation in these areas. The legal theories, I think, are very difficult, and we're not lawyers here, but there are isolated cases where people There are isolated cases where people have filed lawsuits against data brokers who did particular things. There was a case in New Hampshire where a stalker purchased personal information about someone from a data broker and then killed her. And her family sued the data broker, I believe successfully, under state law in New Hampshire. And so it sort of has to get to that level before courts are routinely willing to say that there's a problem with the data broker's practices, I think, so far. Do you want to?
Yeah, one of the things that amused me when I came to the United States was that one of the things that are protected in terms of privacy is video rental records. And this is because that law was passed fairly quickly after a congressman had a Supreme Court nominee's video rental records had been uncovered by the press. So that's what we need to do. Is we need to. I'm almost certain that instant messaging privacy will increase following the recent congressional instant messaging scandal. As far as strategies go, in many ways, because Europe is such a standard for data protection, One of the things we try and work out is ways of expanding the territoriality of the EU's data protection. It worries us when American companies, for instance, can collect data on Europeans and not be covered by EU legislation. We'd much rather have it the other way around. So that's something that we're definitely kind of looking into.
There are the safe harbor provisions, of course, in the EU Data Protection Act. But if the EU starts moving in a different direction with data retention, that's really bad news. So we really need activists in Europe to defeat those initiatives and keep the EU encouraging other parts of the world to adopt a more privacy protecting position on this.
Yeah, actually, U.S. companies are really terrified of European data protection law. I went to a talk by a